The announcement echoed across the station, metallic and sharp, swallowed quickly by the blur of voices, footsteps, and rolling suitcases. The air smelled of rain on steel, damp coats brushing against one another. Everyone rushing but no one really looking. She wasn't rushing. She stood still, a small suitcase at her side, one hand gripping the handle so tightly her knuckles were pale. Her other hand clutched a scarf, red, frayed at the edges, pressed close to her chest as though it could steady the tremor in her breathing. The fabric fluttered in the draft each time the train doors hissed open. Her gaze wasn't on the departure board, not on the train, not even on the people brushing past her. It was fixed, sharp, unblinking, on a cracked watch lying in the palm of her hand. The glass was fractured but still ticking, each second snapping louder in her head than the noise around her. Her lips parted as though she wanted to say something, but no words came. "Just one more minute," she whispered, though no one was close enough to hear. She lifted her eyes, scanned the crowd, searching, always searching. The scarf slipped slightly, brushing against the cold floor. She bent quickly to pick it up, her hands trembling as though even this small motion carried weight she couldn't bear. When she rose again, her eyes were wet, not with tears spilling over but with that fragile shine of someone holding them back too fiercely. Across the platform, laughter erupted, sharp, careless, cruel in its timing. A group huddled near the vending machine, tossing coins, speaking too loudly. She flinched. For an instant the crowd blurred, and she saw only faces she once trusted. Faces that smiled while building walls around her. Faces that clapped when she broke. The scarf twisted in her grip. "Not again," she murmured, almost biting the words. "Not this time." The loudspeaker called another train, names and numbers colliding into the heavy air. The ground seemed to tremble beneath her shoes. She looked down at the cracked watch, the seconds slicing forward, relentless. A man brushed past, muttering an apology. The scarf nearly slipped again. This time she didn't pick it up. She let it fall, trailing against her suitcase like a silent flag in the storm. Her chest rose once sharply, as if preparing for something that couldn't be undone. She closed the watch in her fist. The crowd surged forward. She didn't move. And in that stillness, before the doors sealed and the moment broke apart, the thought pulsed through her. They took everything. And tonight I take it back. The doors slid open, releasing another wave of passengers. Families spilled onto the platform, children tugging at sleeves, parents crouching low with arms wide, laughter echoing off the tiled walls. Suitcases bumped, embraces tangled, kisses landed like promises never broken. She stood among them but apart. Her suitcase waited at her side, its handle scarred with scratches. She traced one with her fingertip, a habit she didn't notice anymore. That suitcase had been her father's once. The same one he carried to factories, to bus stops, to nights when he came home with tired shoulders but eyes that still searched for hers. "Never let them tell you what you can't carry," he had said once, resting the case by her bed when she was too small to lift it. His voice, rough but kind, folded into her memory like the scarf she now clutched. The red fabric smelled faintly of dust and smoke. She had wrapped it around her wrist the day they lowered him into the earth. Since then she wore it like armor. Only tonight it felt thinner, almost translucent, as though it too had grown tired of fighting for her. She watched a boy reunite with his mother, his arms circling her neck so tightly she laughed and coughed in the same breath. The girl's throat ached. She lowered her gaze, hiding behind the curtain of her hair. No one waited for her. No one ever did. The cracked watch ticked on. Each second reminded her of rent unpaid, cupboards empty, phone calls unanswered, of how she had begged for help once, only to be met with the glossy smiles of people who claimed charity but collected her desperation like pocket change. She had believed them, until she discovered the lie, until the red scarf felt more like a witness than a comfort. Her grip on the watch tightened. For a moment, she imagined hurling it against the floor, shattering it completely, silencing its cruel pulse. But she couldn't. It was the last thing of his that still worked, even broken. A shadow fell across her. She glanced up. A man stood a few steps away, not too close, not too far. His coat brushed his shoes, his face unreadable beneath the pale lights. He didn't speak, didn't rush, just watched. His silence carried weight, like he knew that breaking it would change something between them. She shifted, unease crawling up her spine, but she didn't look away. The scarf slipped again. This time he bent slightly as if to catch it, but stopped halfway, hand hovering in the air, pulling back before touching. Their eyes met, hers guarded, his calm. The train's whistle pierced the air. People surged forward, voices blending into chaos. She should have moved. She didn't. Her hand hovered above the suitcase handle. Her lips parted with a question she wasn't ready to ask. And then, against her will, a small, confused smile broke across her face, hesitant, trembling, before fading just as quickly. The doors stayed open longer than they should have, waiting. So did she. The whistle's cry still lingered, echoing against the station walls as though it refused to die. A drop of rain tapped against the glass roof, then another, then hundreds, soft at first, then harder. A steady drumbeat that swallowed conversations and blurred the edges of the crowd. She gripped the suitcase handle, ready to move, yet her feet betrayed her. Her gaze drifted back to him, the silent figure a few steps away. His coat darkened quickly with the rain, shoulders sloping slightly as if the weight of it was nothing new. For the first time she noticed his shoes. Worn at the edges, the leather cracked, soles patched with something that looked like stubbornness more than repair. These weren't the shoes of someone who had everything together. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a wallet. Not with the casual confidence of someone showing off, but with hesitation, almost reluctance. As he searched for something inside, a corner of a photograph peeked out. She glimpsed it for only a second. A child's face blurred by years of creases. A girl maybe. Smiling. Her chest tightened. She looked away quickly as though she'd seen too much. But in that fragment she felt it, the invisible mirror. The loneliness that clung to him, the quiet hunger in his silence. It reflected her own. Thunder cracked outside, rattling the glass panels overhead. The scarf slipped from her wrist again, damp now, clinging cold against her skin. She didn't pick it up. The train conductor shouted, calling last boarding. The words stabbed at her chest. She should have left already. She had planned it all, the timing, the escape, the silent vanishing. The watch ticked in her hand like a reminder of the vow she had made. Tonight I take it back. Yet something in him pulled at the edges of that vow. Not a smile, not a word, not even a gesture. Just the stillness of him. The way he stood as though he understood what it meant to wait when the world demanded you move. Her heart whispered fate. Her mind hissed manipulation. The crowd thinned. Suitcases thudded against the train's floor. Voices grew distant, swallowed by the hiss of closing doors. Rain hammered harder, drowning everything else. He looked at her then, truly looked. Not with pity, not with demand, but with eyes that seemed to ask a question he didn't dare voice. Her breath caught. Her grip on the suitcase faltered. The scarf slid completely from her wrist this time, pooling at her feet. She bent to pick it up. When she rose again, he was gone. The train doors shut with a violent hiss. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. Suitcase in hand, scarf clutched tight, eyes wide with something she couldn't name. The watch ticked louder. And the question she feared most whispered through her. Did I just lose him, or did I just escape? The station lights flickered once, dimming under the storm's shadow. Rain streaked the glass like veins, blurring the outlines of trains sliding past. She stood still, suitcase handle slick in her grip, breath coming shallow. For a moment she thought of walking, just walking out of the station, out of the noise, into the night where no one would know her name. Her legs moved 2 steps, then stopped. Her chest tightened as if pulled by a string she couldn't cut. Against reason she turned for one last look. And there he was. Across the thinning crowd, half shrouded in shadow, he stood near the vending machine. The scarf was in his hand, not hers anymore, his. The red fabric dangled loose between his fingers, damp and heavy, yet he held it like it mattered. Like it wasn't just cloth, but proof of something neither of them had said aloud. Her throat burned. She stepped closer, but the air between them was thick, threaded with the gaze of strangers. A woman nudged her child away, whispering something sharp about people who linger too long. A man waiting on the bench cast a glance, half pity, half suspicion. Society always spoke in silences sharper than words. She lowered her eyes, shame flickering, then lifted them again with defiance. He didn't move, didn't offer the scarf back, only studied it, his thumb brushing over the frayed edge. Her heart whispered, some people carry more than just bags, they carry silence. And in his silence she recognized the weight she bore too. The lies, the losses, the hunger for something just beyond reach. Her knees wavered. For one unbearable second, she almost cried there in the open with the world watching. Almost dropped the suitcase, almost confessed everything. To him, to the air, to anyone who would listen. But the tears caught fire before they could fall. She straightened. Why? The word slipped out, trembling barely more than breath. He didn't answer. Just raised his eyes to hers. They weren't kind. They weren't cruel. They were something harder to face, knowing. A train screeched in, wind rushing through the station, lifting her hair, rattling the cracked watch in her palm. The seconds hammered at her like fists. He extended the scarf finally, not fully, not enough to close the space. Just enough that the red thread of it swayed toward her. Her hand twitched but didn't reach. The conductor shouted again, urging passengers. People brushed past her, muttering, clicking their tongues at her hesitation. She stood frozen. The scarf swayed once more. His hand stayed steady. Her own remained at her side. The storm raged louder, but between them the silence screamed. The scarf hung between them, trembling in the storm's breath. She wanted to take it. She wanted to run. Both desires fought in her veins until her hand shook at her side. Then his voice. Low, steady, the first words he had given her. Some things don't belong to us anymore. Her stomach knotted. He lowered the scarf, folded it once, and slipped it into his coat pocket. As though claiming it. As though returning it was never the point. Before she could speak, the crackle of the loudspeaker pierced the air. Final boarding call for Darlene and Company corporate line. Her heart stuttered. Darlene and Company. The very company she had submitted an application to last week. Her last chance. Her last lifeline. She turned sharply toward the departing train, but her gaze caught on something else. His wallet, half open as he adjusted his coat. The photograph slid out further this time, along with the glossy card pressed against it. Her breath froze. The card bore the crest she recognized instantly, Darlene and Company, but not as an employee badge. As an executive pass. Owner. The man standing in front of her wasn't just a stranger. He was the very gatekeeper to the world she had been clawing toward. The scarf. The silence. The waiting. None of it had been chance. The cracked watch ticked in her palm, faster now, crueler. The words she had whispered earlier returned, heavy with a new edge. Just one more minute. One more minute before she either seized this moment or lost everything. Her father's voice echoed too from years ago, when he had set the battered suitcase at her bedside. Never let them tell you what you can't carry. She swallowed hard, chest tight. Maybe this was the weight he meant, the unbearable choice between revenge and survival, truth and silence. She looked at him again. The photograph of the child, blurred with years of folding, still clung to the wallet. The scarf now rested against it, as if woven into the memory of someone lost. His late daughter? The thought sliced her raw. Her knees nearly gave. No more pretending she could stay untouched. This was the point of no return. The conductor shouted again, louder, impatient. People pressed past, slipping into the train. She clenched the watch in her fist, its cracked face digging into her skin, marking her like a vow. Then she lifted her suitcase, heart hammering. Not onto the train, but toward the glass doors leading inside the corporate building. Her reflection followed, trembling but unbroken. The decision was made, and with it everything would change. The building's lobby was colder than the storm outside. Marble floors gleamed, every step echoing like a verdict. She dragged the suitcase across them, wheels rattling, palms damp against the handle. The cracked watch ticked in her fist, sharper now in the sterile silence than it ever had in the chaos of the station. He followed steady, not rushing. His presence filled the space like a shadow that refused to leave. At the far end of the hall, a long table waited. Suits, polished shoes, faces carved from stone. Executives of Darlene and Company. Their eyes flicked toward her with the same quiet judgment she'd felt on the platform. The whispers were unspoken but loud. "She doesn't belong here." Her chest tightened. For a moment she nearly turned back. Nearly ran. But then his voice cut through. Calm, deliberate. "She stays." The room shifted. A pause rippled across it, disbelief sharpening in the air. Her eyes darted to him. He wasn't looking at the others. He was looking at her. And in that look she understood. He wasn't choosing her out of kindness. Not out of hope. But because she carried something that mirrored him. Something broken, familiar, haunting. The scarf slipped from his pocket then as he moved to sit. It fell silently onto the floor between them. Her breath caught. She bent to pick it up, the red fabric heavy with rain and memory. This time she didn't clutch it. She laid it on the table in the center where all their eyes could see. "This doesn't belong to me anymore," she whispered, her voice raw, trembling but steady enough to cut. The executives shifted uncomfortably. One muttered, "She's not ready." He silenced them with a glance. Then he reached forward, his hand brushing the scarf back toward her. "Keep it," he said. "Some debts can't be buried." Her chest ached but she shook her head. "I'm not your daughter. I'm not your memory. I'm me." The words surprised even her, sharp and final. The cracked watch ticked louder, its face catching the fluorescent light. She placed it gently beside the scarf. The two objects, her inheritance and his loss, side by side, yet not bound. Sacrifice. Letting go instead of clinging. The air thickened. Something broke in his eyes. Not anger, not grief, but the release of something he'd held too long. For the first time his silence felt lighter. She turned then, suitcase in hand. Her reflection followed in the polished marble, no longer trembling. The station's echo returned to her mind. The announcement, the rushing crowd, the weight of stillness. But this time she wasn't frozen. She was walking away, not because she had nothing left, but because she had given back what was never hers to keep. Behind her, the scarf remained on the table. His hand rested over it like a prayer. She didn't look back. Because some endings aren't meant to be witnessed, only carried. And as the doors opened to the night storm, one truth whispered through her, haunting and clear. Not every stranger you help is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. The rain had softened into a mist by the time she stepped outside. The storm's roar was gone, replaced by the quiet drip of water sliding from the station roof. Each step felt lighter, though her suitcase pulled the same weight. The city lights blurred in the distance, gold and silver bleeding together like paint on wet paper. She didn't rush. For once she didn't feel the need to. The cracked watch rested in her pocket, still ticking, still fractured. But she no longer held it like a wound. It was simply there. A piece of time she carried, not the whole of it. The scarf was gone, left where it belonged, but its warmth lingered faintly on her wrist, like memory pressed into skin. She crossed a quiet street where puddles mirrored the night sky. Her reflection stared back. Wet hair, tired eyes, but steadier somehow. Not healed. Not whole. Just different. Passing a cafe window, she paused. Inside, people laughed, shared plates, argued softly about nothing important. She watched for a moment, the glow wrapping them in warmth. A thought surfaced, sharp and soft all at once. Sometimes love is not romance, it's recognition. Recognition of loss. Of hunger. Of the unspoken battles two strangers can see in each other's silence. Her lips curved into the ghost of a smile. Not joy, not yet. But the kind of smile that comes when pain loosens its grip enough to let air back into the lungs. At her small apartment, she set the suitcase by the door. The watch she placed inside a drawer, beneath the faint light of the lamp. Not buried. Not worshipped. Just resting. Where time could exist without haunting her every breath. She sat on the edge of her bed, listening to the rain's fading rhythm against the window. Fingers traced the seam of the blanket. Breath steady. For the first time in months, maybe years, silence didn't feel like punishment. The night stretched open before her, wide and uncertain. Tomorrow would still bring hunger, unpaid bills, the long climb. Nothing had magically changed. Yet she felt something unexplainable shift inside, as if carrying the weight no longer meant being crushed by it. Her eyes closed, and in the dark, she whispered a line, not for him, not for anyone else, just for herself. Not every ending takes something away. Some endings give you back the pieces you forgot were yours. The clock ticked in the drawer, steady, patient. Outside, the rain stopped. And in the silence that followed, one thought lingered, unfinished but alive, like a question waiting to be answered. What if the people we almost lose are the ones we were never meant to keep, only meant to learn from?